Every day I get dozens of messages from you, my subscribers, asking me to talk about various different subjects, artists, etc. And a message that really made me pay attention recently was a message that said, "Vaughan, why have you not done a video on Vince Clarke?" That's a very good question. Hi guys, and welcome once again to another episode of Piano and Keyboard Artist, where we discuss the artists related to pianos, keyboards and synthesizers. And today we're talking all about Mr. Vince Clarke. The first video I did on Erasure was Erasure Synth-pop Perfection, and you can see that video by clicking on the link below. But I wanted to do a video more focused on Vince Clarke, who is the synth-pop pioneer behind Erasure, Depeche Mode, Yazoo, and also the Assembly, which a lot of people don't know. Vince Clarke's sound is very distinct. Not only is Vince Clarke a genius when it comes to synthesis, but he's also an incredibly talented songwriter. And this is where the two pieces come together to form genius. Now, people who are not fans of early electronic music would probably say that, the success of Erasure and Pet Shop Boys, Depeche Mode, acts like that, is down to their synthesized sound, and that is not entirely true. Vince Clarke proves, as do Pet Shop Boys, as do Depeche Mode, and many of those, they do prove that in order to gain that kind of success, it is not about the sound and the image alone. The songs have to be very good. Focusing on Vince Clarke has the ability to write hit songs. And I did see in a documentary once where it was said, Vince Clarke said something along the lines of, forget about all the art, forget about all the, the bells and the smoke and the mirrors. It all comes down to writing good songs. And the guy just had hit after hit after hit after hit. Erasure, Yazoo, the Assembly, and early Depeche Mode do share the same sonic properties, similar sound, obviously because the sound behind these, the brains behind all these acts was Vince Clarke. And Vince Clarke gave us, he was one of the first pioneers. This was a time where, if we go back a little bit, we had Kraftwerk who really brought electronic music to the forefront of the music world. But it was very out there, off the wall, very scientific and very rigid and groundbreaking. But Vince Clarke really gravitated towards synthesizers. He liked the idea that you could take this sound and the pop record could be presented in a way that had never been heard before. And this was a very exciting time because unlike the conventional music movement, you now had this synthesized sound. And it was very exciting because you needed not be a brilliant technical player, but you had the ability now to, present your work and in a very creative way and come up with sounds that had never been heard before. So this was a very exciting time. So the similarity between Kraftwerk and Vince Clarke really is, if you listen to Kraftwerk records and you listen to Erasure records, especially the earlier stuff, you will hear the similarities in the sound. Those wonderful little analog sounds. But the difference being Erasure, Yazoo, Vince Clarke's music was presented in a completely different way. So you can hear the elements of the Kraftwerk sound, but Vince Clarke was presenting it in a completely different way where the song was actually more important than the synthesis. Now, on the subject of songwriting and synthesis, Vince Clarke is first and foremost a songwriter. He just happens to be brilliant at programming and synthesis as well. And that's quite a rare skill. If you look at loads of different examples, different electronic bands, there was always one that was the songwriter, then there would be one who was like the lyricist, who would contribute lyrics, Or in different lineups, you would have someone who was just they would just come up with melodic ideas, and then another one would add the words, and then there would be one who would be the programmer, and then they'd work with the producer. Vince Clarke encompasses all these qualities, and I think this is why Vince Clarke has been so successful. I get the idea that he's very strong-minded and a little bit shrewd, because I get the feeling that he will, if things aren't suiting him, he'll be off, because I think he's got such belief in himself and confidence. And this is demonstrated in 1981 when Depeche Mode got signed by Daniel Miller. They made the Speak and Spell record, and the Speak and Spell record, I believe, was not even released yet when Vince Clarke decided, that's it, I'm out of here. Now, I find that very brave, because think of it this way, you're young and you've just got signed. I mean, that must be such such an achievement. You just got signed, so you'd want to hang on to that opportunity at all costs. But yes, Vince going, okay, I'm out of here. So it was kind of like, wow, that's brave. But I think he knew, and he had the vision and the foresight to know that he could do it on his own. And I think this is, if you look at traditional bands, if we're talking about Depeche Mode, I mean, there was always friction between them as members. There was always friction in bands like Duran Duran. In fact, think of any mega, rock band, pop band who've been around for a long time. There's always friction between them. And I think Vince Clarke, by sort of going it alone, eliminated that human element. And I think I always like to say it's the elimination of all the moving parts. Like with engineering, you always want to minimize the amount of moving parts. And certainly when it comes to human beings, which are the most volatile and emotional parts of a band, obviously. I think by eliminating the human element, sounds quite sinister, you're cutting out all the diplomacy and the politics and stuff. And this is why I think Erasure worked. So drawing the comparison with Pet Shop Boys, I've never heard of Neil Tennant falling out with Chris Lowe. So I get the idea that the duos, the two-person collaboration was probably easier to manage, because you didn't have people stepping on each other's toes. If you're a producer and a musician, you will know exactly what I mean. And if you're a producer and you've ever produced bands, you'll know what it's all about. You can spend so much time just getting through politics. So Vince Clarke really, I think he understood that early on. It's, go out by yourself. It's all there. You can make the music yourself. Get a singer that can sing really well. And in the case of Andy Bell, who can collaborate with you, but Andy's never going to really step on your toes as far as the synthesis goes, because I don't think Andy Bell really understands synthesizers. Vince, oh, that's a nice sound. Oh. So yeah, I think Vince Clarke made all the right moves. And I said in a previous video that I was glad that Vince Clarke left Depeche Mode, because if he had not, things would have turned out very differently. We would have not got the Depeche Mode that we have now. Vince Clarke leaving Depeche Mode forced Martin Gore to sort of take the reins as a songwriter. And as I've said before, Vince Clarke and Martin Gore are equally talented in their own way, but they are very much like night and day. I always like to refer to Vince Clarke as major keys and upbeat, and Martin Gore more emotional, deep, and minor keys. But both are equally brilliant in their own way. And I think most Depeche Mode fans are also Erasure fans. Right, let's discuss some of the gear that Vince Clarke uses. Now, this can be a very long segment, or it can be a very short segment. And to answer your question, what gear does Vince Clarke use? Well, that's an easy answer. Basically everything. And when I say everything, I really mean analog. Any great synthesizer, modular synthesizer that has ever existed, Vince Clarke's used it, had it. Of course, he has his favorites. Some of his noticeable favorites, I'm just going to run through a few. The OB1, as he said, he likes it for its big fat bass sound. The Oberheim Expander is a synthesizer that Vince has said he's been used on virtually every Erasure sound. Now, the Oberheim Expander, it's really it's a modular synth, but it has digital control, and you can modulate everything with everything. So it's very, very versatile. The ARP 2600, I mean, these are very expensive, very rare. Vince used that a lot, for percussive sounds, bass sounds. It has a very good, it's very good for like bottom end sounds. Guys, I've never had the privilege of being able to use an ARP 2600, but I'm basing this on hearsay and knowledge that is out there. He also used the Roland System 100, 100F. So Vince Clarke does have access to a large palette of some of the most classic and iconic vintage analog synthesizers of all time. But within that, he does have his personal favorite, and Vince Clarke has said that his personal favorite synthesizer of all time is the Pro One. And the Pro One has it's very great for percussive sounds because it has a very fast envelope. I don't want to get too geeky, but yeah, the Pro One is kind of his go-to synth. When he gets an idea or something, he'll kind of go to that and then, you know, move on from there. When it comes to the Vince Clarke gear list, we could go on forever because, as I say, his kit list is incredible. If it's analog and it's out there, he's used it. When Vince and Andy write a song, they will typically use an acoustic guitar or an acoustic piano, and they don't write in a studio. They like to write in a neutral environment where there's no distractions, nothing to distract them. And I wish talk in previous videos how it is so important that you write songs in a very vanilla way. To be metaphorical, think of the song as a chicken stew. You know, if you ain't got good chicken, you ain't got a good chicken stew. Of course, there are many spices that are needed to make the chicken stew taste good, but if you don't have good chicken, it's not going to be a very good chicken stew. So if you excuse the metaphor, the chicken being the song. As I spoke about on my previous video, when you strip out the electronic sound, the bells and the whistles, and, you know, all those great production sounds that are iconic of Vince Clarke, and you just strip it back to its original chord structures, you will find that Erasure's songs will work on a ukulele, on a piano, on anything, because at the core, at the root of it, are great songs. They are not relying on synthesizers. What they typically do is they have their acoustic guitar or the acoustic piano, and they use, funny enough, dictaphones. They have several cassette dictaphones which they use. The process is just really Vince strumming a few chords on a guitar or on a piano, and then Andy just sings and makes lyrics, and they record it into these cassette dictaphones, and which is interesting because, you know, Erasure is such a technological, and Vince Clarke is such a technological guy, so you would laugh to think that they're using such a basic way to write the songs and, you know, using a cassette dictaphone. But once again, it's eliminating the distractions, and that means it crystallizes your focus, and it means that you are totally focused on just the song. So, and as I demonstrated in my previous video, if you take some of the Erasure songs, and I'm just going to run through them at random, take a song like Blue Savannah Song. I'm just illustrating it with the chords now, without sort of doing frills and melodies. Blue Savannah Song, oh, blue Savannah Song. There's your 3-chord song. Somewhere across the desert, sometime in the early hours, feel a restless world on the open highway. Variation. My home is where the heart is, sweet surrender to you only. I send my love to you. Now that's classic Erasure. Simple chords, but the song, can you see how that just works on a piano? There's no drums and sequences and all the electronic magic to go with that. So many different examples. If we take Ship of Fools, which is the now obviously that's the melodic information there, but let's just break it down just into the chords. It's literally, I can't believe what is happening to me, my head is spinning. 3 chords. The flowers in the trees are encapsulating me, and I was spinning. And then a bridge. He was a baby of the class, you know. You really didn't know that 1 and 1 was 2, 2 and 2 were 4. 3 chords again. He was the baby of the class, you know. You really didn't know that, really didn't know that. Oh, what a fool. Onto the chorus, which is 4 chords. So, do we not sail on a ship of fools? Why is life so precious, so cruel? It's just 4 chords. Now, once again, I'm repeating myself. Play that on a piano, it just works. And that was played really simply, but if you play it more melodically, it could be like... You can do all the I can't believe what is happening to me, my head is spinning. And you can throw the kitchen sink in at it. But at its core, it's just a beautiful and a simple song. Let's look at one of their biggest hits, A Little Respect. Simple, C key, gorgeous melody, but simple. I try to discover a little something to make me sweeter. Oh baby, refrain from breaking my heart. I'm so in love with you, I'll be forever blue. That you give me no reason. I could get carried away, yeah, as you guys know I do. But it's illustrating, once again, the simplicity of their songs. If you think that Erasure's success is all about the sound and the synthesizers, it's not. It's more about the song. The synthesizers are just the tools which they use to present the songs. Erasure's songs can hold their own. So even if they were played in a rock format, whatever the format, the basis of the songs are solid. That is why Erasure works. And the songwriting is very traditional. So after they've written the song, Vince will then go home or to a studio or wherever, simply with a laptop and a little controller keyboard, and he will go on to program the songs just using soft synths in the computer and a controller keyboard, and he'll just work out the chords and the arrangement. And then afterwards, that sequence is taken to the studio, and the digital sounds, the in-the-box plugins, are replaced using analog synthesizers, because we all know that Vince is a huge advocate of analog synthesizers, and it's probably more a subject for the Geek Talk series. But there is something amazing about analog synthesizers and modulars, is the fact that when you switch it on, they're so unpredictable. Yeah, you put it on and it's like, whoa, what's going to come out of this thing? It's not like a plug-in in a digital in a DAW, where you switch it on and it's like, oh, there's a preset, and you know what it is. I talked in a video once how analog synthesizers are a little bit like Vicky Cristina Barcelona, the movie, a bit like that Maria Helena, played by Penelope Cruz, and she's this beautiful, temperamental. You're always walking on tender hooks because you never know when she's gonna snap, and that's very much like an analog synthesizer. They are just so unpredictable. They are so alive, and they inspire you to work in a very different way. And although we talk at length on this series, on this channel, how digital is very good at emulating analog, what you cannot replace is the sort of the tactile, hands-on feel and the writing process that a real analog synthesizer will inspire you as a producer to produce. There is so much we can delve into on the subject of Vince Clarke. There are not many people who can boast that they've had 3 tremendously successful acts under their name. I mean, he had Depeche Mode, he had Yazoo, the Assembly, which he kind of skipped over very quickly, with a vocalist Fergal Sharkey. I don't know what happened there, but I don't know what happened there. And then on to Erasure, and Erasure's obviously been his most successful project to date. Interesting how Yazoo fragmented, and I believe the reason that Yazoo broke up, it was nothing sinister, they didn't fall out or anything. I remember reading somewhere, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that I believe that Alison Moyet just felt that her vocals were better suited to less electronic music, it's a view, but sometimes in music, that is where these contrasts work. Sometimes you will get a really, let's be random, sometimes you might get a really dark, sinister sound. And then if you marry that with a really sweet, girly kind of voice, sometimes it's these contrasts where things seem like they're going to be a paradox, or it's just not going to work. Sometimes that's where you get the magic. I will be doing videos soon on Yazoo, including album reviews. Alison Moyet, I really, really rate her. She's pure class. I love Alison Moyet, and the stuff she went on to do is another subject altogether. And if I can just comment on her vocals, she's got a very low register. If you listen to the register she sings in, she almost sings in a male register, more sort of like a male tenor register. If you listen to "If I Wait for Just a Second More," you could actually hear Andy Bell singing that. He'd be more like, "If I wait for just a second more." So she does sing in the same sort of register as Andy Bell. And this is completely irrelevant, really. It might be interesting for you if you're a geek. But if you listen to the songwriting sort of from Yazoo, Assembly, and Erasure, you could actually, if you think of the song, "It Never Happens to Me, It Never Happens to Me," Fergal Sharkey. Now you could hear Andy Bell singing that, and you could hear Alison Moyet singing that. So there are these great similarities in the songs, but of course that's because Vince is at the heart of it. Guys, I could go on forever. I'm really passionate about the subject of erasure and synthesizers in general. You know, I'm a serious geek. But I want you guys to leave your comments below. Let me know what you think of Vince Clarke. And as I say, this was just a scratching the surface discussion about Vince Clarke. Let me know what aspects of Vince Clarke you would like me to delve deeper into in the comments below. If this is the first time you've come to my channel, I would like to welcome you with open arms, and I'm hoping you will hit that subscribe button and join the tribe. There is also a Vaughan George Facebook group, and all the links are provided below. Join that group. We're having a lot of fun. To my regular subscribers, guys, as always, thank you so much. I really appreciate your support and the constant love and interaction I get from you guys. Guys, I will leave you to it, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video. I'll see you soon in the Facebook group. Have a lovely day.